Thing 1, 2, 3. Alright guys, Simon here, and we are seeing what we can learn from SimCity 4. So we're not going to build a city yet. I was thinking, if I can get this to work, is cheating a little bit and then seeing if we can have a look at this city. I mean, have a look at the parts of a city. Let me just how do you spell cheetah? That's cheetah. The cat. Is that how you spell it? I don't know how to spell cheetah. Wow. It's CHEOAH. Oh, my bad. Alright, so I think we can go Control X, and then we're gonna type "You don't deserve it." Did that work? Oh wow, that worked. So that's the cheat code for unlocking everything. So usually you have to actually build a city, and then especially the rewards, but even other buildings, they progressively get unlocked as you build bigger cities. See that? You require a city size of 31,000 to get this, so we've unlocked everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the whole list of things we can build and just kind of talk about where they fit into the city. Some of this might be kind of obvious, or it feels it's kind of obvious when you look at it, but let's just think of this as a checklist of the components of a city, or the ingredients that go into a city, right? Keeping in mind that this is a game and a simulation, and so a lot of the things that are in the real world might not be in here. And we might try to think of what some of those things are as well as we go through this. Alright, so we have trees. Trees are fairly important. People actually like trees a lot. I mean, people like plants a lot. It actually has been scientifically proven that having vegetation where you live is actually good for your health, and it's good for your it's both physical health and psychological health. So yeah, it's actually not good to cover everything in concrete and glass, and then it's actually better to have trees. Actually, scientifically proven, not just people liking trees, but actually proven. So more important than you think in the real world. In the game, mostly they're used to block pollution. So if you let's just zoom in. So if you kind of just plant a lot of trees, right? So this is about as dense as you can put them in the game. So if you do that, they actually form a barrier against air pollution. So that's really useful in game for that. But aside from that, not too useful in game. So we have the residential, right? And the commercial and the industrial. I don't know my urban planning history well enough to know where this categorization came from. But the industrial, I mean, it must be after the Industrial Revolution, right? Because before that, it wouldn't be that important in the industry. So around about the time of the Industrial Revolution, when people started burning coal, that's when pollution became a problem. And that's when these three things really became separated. I mean, before that, sometimes they were separated for other practical reasons, but it wasn't, the difference wasn't so clear. But once you start, burning coal and having these factories that threw a lot of pollution into the air, then people really decided, okay, we need to separate the houses or the homes from the factories, because we don't want to, it's bad enough that we work in those terrible factories. You don't want to live near them as well because they smell bad, right? And it's bad for your health. So these days we have this separation of kind of city functions into these three categories: residential, where people live; commercial, where people do business, where people trade, and also the service industry is there. And then manufacturing. I guess agriculture is here. Agriculture and manufacturing is an industrial. But more recently, there has also been talk about mixed-use buildings. So putting these things back together, because these days, with high technology, with high-tech manufacturing, it's not necessarily polluting. or if it's low intensity manufacturing, it's not necessarily polluting. And the problem with separating the three things, actually, I might leave this for later on, but I'll talk about it now. The problem with separating this is once you separate the land uses, then you need transportation to let people kind of travel between the three of them, right? You get in your car, you go to work, you come home. Whereas if you live above your office or you live above your shop, then you eliminate that transportation requirement, or you greatly reduce the transportation requirement. So, back in the old days and nowadays, in some new developments, you have shops downstairs, workshops, or like whatever shop you have, and then people would live above the shops, and so they have one building, and that's their work and their home, and that works sometimes, and then people don't have to they don't have to travel to work. You just kind of wake up and then go downstairs, and there's your work, right? So you don't sit in traffic to get to work. That's a plus. The minus is, of course, then you're living in a partially commercial area, and so your house might be a little noisier. You might not get the privacy or as much privacy and things like that. There might be a little bit more pollution if there are kind of workshops nearby. Not just smells and things like that, but even noise pollution as well, and light pollution. Imagine if you're trying to sleep and then there's shops open in the middle of the night next door, and then there's kind of lights coming in and you can't sleep and all that. So there's issues either way. Either you have the traffic and the transport and then the traveling between the different zones, or you kind of mix the zones together and then you have problems with people kind of doing different things in the same space. Alright, that's enough of that. We don't build, we've said we don't build houses directly in this game. We kind of set the zones and then let the AI come in and do their thing. So we've seen that before. Alright, so next up we have this is like the transport menu. We're going to read the menus too. Zone tools, transportation tools. Alright, so we have roads, we have streets. See, it doesn't actually say. I mean, it tells you low capacity thoroughfares for your city, and then it says primary thoroughfares for your city, right? And then it says one-way roads allow larger cities to specify directional traffic in the same amount of space as a road. It's a good idea to alternate blocks with one-way road in opposing directions to ensure complete traffic flow. I've never really understood how to use this, like the one-way roads. I mean, there's two lanes here, or one lane on each side. There's two lanes here, so double the capacity, but only in one direction. I'm not sure why one is better than the other, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, so the last one is the avenues. What does it say there? Not as expensive as highways, but allow more traffic than roads. Like, this is not quantitative. You can kind of see the descriptions. They're qualitative, so they don't actually tell you exactly how many cars per minute or how many people per minute can use these roads. And then there are figures in the game that are set, but then you don't see them. And I've been saying in the other videos too, like there are game mechanics here that we don't actually see, that are in the game, but they don't actually tell us. And then this is one of them. Like the avenues, so it's double wide, it's like two roads, so it's kind of like basically two one-way roads, except that it's an avenue and it's automatic. Especially when you put a crossroad there, you see how the crossings are different, so it works better using the avenues, I think. Although it does actually cost quite a bit more. Look at the monthly cost, $1 per segment monthly, and these things are like 10 cents per month. Even when you put two of them side by side, it's only 20 cents. I think these carry more than double than the roads. And I'm not a roading engineer. I don't know the exact formula for calculating road capacities. I think a two-lane road carries more than double single-lane roads. Even though you think, okay, one lane is one car and then two lanes is two cars. So hey, it's double. But no, because the people can, switch between lanes. I think the two-lane road ends up being more than double the capacity of a single-lane road. I'm not sure about that. Maybe you should look it up. Maybe I should look it up. Anyway, so those are your basic roads, and roads are important because, well, they're important in game because everything travels on roads. Like roads basically determine linkages between buildings. If you've seen in the tutorials, I think people travel from their homes to work, right? And they have to travel on roads in this game. They can't travel on grass. So in game they determine where you go. I guess in real life they do as well. Although, in some places, even if they aren't roads, if people kind of just travel on that path, then they create a pathway there, even if it's not paved and all that. But these days, in industrialized countries, in developed countries, there's roads, and people use roads. They're important. I imagine if you walk outside your front door and there's no road there. It's a bit weird, isn't it? Anyway, so those are the basic roads, and then we have highways. There's like ground level highways on the ground. Again, like this is, I think, is there like 3 lanes on each side? This is like 2 lanes on each side. Again, it doesn't actually tell you exactly how many cars. It says a cheaper alternative to elevated highways, but more difficult to plan around for connectivity. Drag end of ground highway, elevated highway, or avenue to build a transition. So you can't cross them, or you can. Oh nope, you can do a T. Whoa, crazy man. Can't do that though. I was trying to make a crossing, but you can kind of build roads and they'll automatically put on ramps and off ramps for you. That's pretty crazy actually. And then you can transition straight into elevated highways. How do you do this? I thought it says you can do transitions. Oh, maybe there's not enough space there. Let me just extend this out a little bit. And then elevated. There we go. You can transition from ground highways to elevated highways. So that allows you to cross over roads, whereas this doesn't really. I mean, you can't do that. So, oh wait, you can cross to the other road over. I'm actually not sure. I guess it depends on what you're trying to build and what's already there existing. It seems like that's going to be cheaper if we use the ground highways and then just bridge over there. That's cheaper than the elevator highways. You can see the cost here. The monthly cost is the same, but the cost to build is 200% when there, 600% when here. And then you have ground highway cloverleaf to convert a highway overpass to an overleaf exchange. Drag exchange highlight over crossing highways. When cursor changes from red to green, click to place. So just more roads basically, but higher capacity, and then T sections and T sections, and on ramp, off ramps. So we can do. Oh, that's the diagonal one. Oh no, we can do that. We can do that. Not there though, and not there because there's not enough space. On ramps. Do we that's not very good. Anyway, so on ramps and off ramps. So yeah, roads are important, and things to consider are like the capacity of the roads, how many cars, and also how fast they go. Obviously, faster travel on highways than on normal roads, and then faster on roads than on streets again. And that goes into travel times as well. I mean, commute time. Like just because you link a road from one side of the city to another, if it takes like 5 hours to get from one side to the other, people aren't going to use it to get to work. Or unless they're really, really dedicated, then they might. Imagine like adding 10 hours to your workday just to get to work. That's crazy, right? So that's also a limitation, or that poses a limitation for people living in your city. If they can't travel from one place to another, then your city doesn't really function very well. What else do we have? On ramps, off ramps. Alright, so that's all the road stuff. And you see how most of this is not automated. So this is part of the game, or this is one of the main parts of the games, is to plan out your roads so that the simulation will run, and then things can get from one building to another efficiently. I don't actually use trains very much, so we have trains here. Passenger capacity 200, freight train station capacity 2,000 tons or 2,000 people. Grand Railroad Station provides a boost to commercial and residential demand, so it doesn't even have a capacity. It's more like a demand cap buster. And then the monorail, which is like a faster train. I don't use trains very much. I think what happens is you need a public parking garage, because like everybody in SimCity has a car, which is, another thing about the simulation that's not entirely realistic. In the real world, not everyone has a car. And in fact, you don't really, I mean, it's as I said, this is Sim America, so maybe it doesn't really apply to the US. A lot of people have cars in the US. But in some other parts of the world, like Singapore, like Hong Kong, like Tokyo, New York, that's in the US as well, but New York is kind of different. Like a lot of people don't have cars because like the cities are so dense and so highly populated that if everybody drove cars, there'd be too many cars on the street and nobody can move anywhere. So, and then public transport is kind of more space efficient. If they're designed well, then they're definitely a lot more space efficient than cars. And with high passenger volumes, it becomes more economical to have, public transport. And so, Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo, even London, New York. New York's public transport is a little bit strange, like it's not that great. The other cities, much better. Actually, I haven't been to New York, to be honest, so I don't know firsthand. But based on what I've read, I don't think it's that good. Anyway, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, so in SimCity everybody has a car. In the real world, not quite. So in SimCity, like you kind of have to accommodate for cars. And one of the things you do is you have a public parking garage, so that people can drive to the train station and then take the train somewhere else. But it calculates it so that once they get off the train, they don't have a car on the other side, so they kind of have to be close to the destination. And there's only a certain distance people will walk in this game. So if the distance is further than walking, so if they have to they kind of park the car, get on the train, get off the train, and then if off the train toward the destination is too far away, they won't take the train at all. They just kind of recalculate, go back and take the car all the way. So like public transport is actually really, really not efficient in this game. Like, and also look at the bus stops. The bus stop takes up 1 square, right? But 1 square is the size of a house in this game. Like you can do a 1 square residential plot, and that's gonna be like a house. So the scale is off as well. Like the smallest thing in the game is 1 square, and the bus stop takes up 1 square. Whereas in real life, a bus stop can be just the side of the road with not even a shelter sometimes. It's just a kind of a sign. That's a couple of lines painted on the side of the street, and that's a bus stop. So bus stops in game are a lot less efficient than bus stops in the real world. And so bus stops don't really work very well. And like you see what I'm saying? Like they take up so much space. I mean, take up 1 square. It's only 1 square, but that's a lot of space in game. And then these train stations are like 3 squares. Yeah, I don't know. This game, I really don't think they've thought through the transport very much. I do use subways, but only because subways go underground, but they're expensive though. They do go underground, and so that they don't compete for space above ground quite as much, although the station still takes up 1 space. I mean, a subway station is the size of a house, but it's not. Like in the real world, if you've been in a city where there are subway stations, like it's just a thing. It's just a staircase on the street. I mean, the subway station itself is quite big, but it's underground, so nobody cares, right? It's not like it takes up space on street level, usually. So yes, stuff like this makes the public transport in this game really not competitive with roads and cars. And I mean everyone has cars in this game, so that's just really a lot easier. Um, yeah, so that's in the real world you really want good mass transit. If you have a big city, definitely. If you have a small city, then it's not really economical. Or if your population density is low, it's not economical. Because consider, I don't know if that's interesting or not, I'm just kind of rambling. Consider a bus, right? How many people sit in a bus? 30, 60? Buses are quite big. And so if you don't have a full bus, then you're running at, you're not optimizing the efficiency of that vehicle. You see what I'm saying? I mean, even with cars, a lot of people kind of just drive like one person in a four-seater car. That's not efficient either, but that happens. Like if you have four people in a car, that's four times as efficient as one person in a car, basically. And the same with buses. Like if you have one person on a bus, that bus is wasting a lot of money, right? Whereas if you have 60 people on that bus, that's quite economical. I mean, that's just cheaper than running a car. So what happens is mass transit, the keyword being mass, only really works where there's enough people living close enough together for these vehicles to be, kind of filled most of the time. Then it becomes efficient. Then it becomes cost effective to run these things. Otherwise, it's just a waste of money, unfortunately. And so in a lot of American cities where you sprawl a lot and a lot of people live in low density suburbs, public transport doesn't really work. And then we go back to what I was saying earlier, why Tokyo works, why Hong Kong works, why Singapore works, why even New York works. It's because the density is much higher. And so then the public transport can be economical. Alright, that's enough of that. What else do we have? We have airports. I don't know if I've ever built... Holy crap, look how big this thing is. I mean, this is the smallest city you can build in SimCity, but this thing is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1/6 of your city is an airport. You can do that if you want. Kind of pointless though. So people in the game, people don't actually travel on planes. What this does is it opens your city up to new economic opportunities, can entice more businesses to your city, can bring thousands of business travelers and tourists to your city. Basically, all it does is increase your commercial demand cap, and that's what it does. So then, once you put this in, then more commercial buildings will be built. If you've reached the limit. If you haven't reached the limit, then there's no point building it at all. And again, the demand caps are not stated in game, so you don't actually know when is the best time to build these things. I mean, if you don't know about the demand cap, you don't even know at all. But even if you know about demand caps, if you don't have a spreadsheet next to you, then you'll be playing your city, and then your businesses kind of stop growing after a while. You keep doing stuff, and the demand looks like it's quite high, but still nothing gets built. Then you kind of guess that, okay, maybe I need an airport, and then you put it in, and then hopefully then more businesses will get built. So is that a guessing thing that I don't really like about this game. I guess in the real world, airports function pretty much the same way. It encourages businesses. I mean, people travel overseas, yeah, and it's hard to run an international business if you don't have if the city you're in don't have an airport. Like people kind of, if you don't want to travel somewhere else, it's a pain. If you want other people to come visit you, it's a pain as well. And similar things with ports. So here we have ferry terminals and car and passenger ferry terminals. So these are the transport things. Not really important. The seaport is more important. Why is the seaport so small compared to the airport? That's crazy. So seaports are used to transport speeds up raw materials to factories and finished goods to markets. Basically that increases your industrial demand cap. In the real world, seaports are much more important. Basically, if you have any sort of manufacturing in your city or in your country, then you kind of have to have a seaport. in order to ship your products overseas so they can be sold. And seaports or any city on any trade route, and these days it's seaports because most of the trade is on ships and shipping, right? So any city on a trade route throughout history has always been prosperous because people are traveling through your city. People kind of bringing goods from one side of the world to the other. They stop in your city, they spend money, right? They have to buy food, they have to resupply, and they bring goods from all over the world to your city, and then people who want to access those goods come to your city to meet those traders to buy the goods. And so if your city is lucky enough to be positioned on a trade route, you're almost guaranteed to be wealthy. So these days, I guess Singapore is a good example of one of those ports. Like it lies on the shipping route between Asia and Europe, and that's basically why Singapore is important. Obviously it's kind of positioned itself as a port city as well. So as a city, you have to build the infrastructure to resupply those ships, right? And to provide a place where kind of some of these trades can be made. But then once you do that, and if you're in a good position, then the trade will come to you. Now and in the near future, with global warming, the Arctic is likely to melt, and so the North Pole is expected to become a very important a set of trade routes, because Europe is there up in the northern hemisphere, Canada and the United States is there, Japan is kind of close, China not so much, but and the trade the trade that's expected to go through the Arctic is huge. I mean, today they have to go through the Panama Canal, the Suez Canal, go across the equator and all that. That's a long way compared to just going over the Arctic if it's ice free. So once the ice melts, that becomes a very important trade route. One of the reasons why Canada is not doing anything about global warming, well, that, and it's got tar sands, so it's got a lot of oil in the sand and the shale, right? And also, if the Arctic melts, then it will benefit from the Arctic trade route. So Canada's not playing ball on climate change mitigation, and that's why. Russia too, in a way, but Russia has other problems with climate change. And I'm not here to talk about climate change, of course. Anyway, seaports, very important in the real world, kind of not important at all in this game, unfortunately. Like, the impact, we don't have a beach here. If you build a seaport in game, it doesn't do anywhere near as much as what you would get from a city in the real world on a trade route. So, yeah. A marina is mostly recreational, so I think it's a demand cap buster for high wealth residents. That's another thing too, like in SimCity, every city is the same, like there's no locational differences. Whereas in the real world, like if your city is near some beautiful mountains, then you get it becomes a tourist destination. If your city is on a trade route, as I said, then it becomes, a trading hub. If your city is near some natural resources like copper mines or iron ore mines, then it becomes a mining city, and then you get money from that. So in the real world, you get those factors, which are important to managing cities. In SimCity, every city is just the same. Doesn't really matter. I think the latest SimCity, SimCity 5. You can specialize this, what they say you can specialize the city a bit. That game's a little bit whack. I'm not gonna talk too much about it. It doesn't really work as they wanted it to. But they tried some new things, and then most of it kind of works. I do hope they fix all the bugs at some point in the future. Not too confident they will, though. Alright, so that's the transport options in the game. Actually, can we consider if any transport options are missing? I mean, there's no bicycle lanes. People walk and they drive. They don't ride bicycles. They don't use segways. Those segways, the little things that make you look like a nerd. Um, what else isn't there? I guess the transport options are fairly complete in this game, but there's no. I guess there's traffic congestion that's simulated in the game as well. Yeah, but the trains. Oh, there's no trams. Like for a while, we thought trams weren't important anymore, but now it seems to be quite good again. Like cities with trams are kind of nice. I lived in Melbourne for 3.5 years. The tram system there is quite good. I like it. Um, but yeah, trams are. For a while we thought we'd just go with buses because like trams were, I think they were kind of invented before they're called streetcars back then. Before private automobiles were kind of viable, like they were too expensive, oil was too expensive. But then after the Second World War, everybody got cars. Basically, all the tank factories and military truck factories converted to building civilian cars, right? And then all the oil refineries that were being used for the war effort kind of transitioned to civilian use, and so then all these new machines and oil and all these new technologies kind of came into the civilian business, and then everybody bought cars basically. Um, yeah, so before cars were really viable, there was trams and streetcars. I don't know where I'm going with this, but there's no trams in this game. Yeah, like SimCity is designed. I mean, it's a bit older now. You have to remember that the first SimCity, which all subsequent SimCities are based, like this game is designed with certain assumptions in mind, and so it's also based on United States cities. So a lot of other cities are not like this. Like the grid is quite the grid is quite a recurring feature in American cities, but in a lot of European cities we don't have this grid, and so like the simulation has certain assumptions built into it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.